Thank you very much. Firstly, what are you doing here? Can you read the slides? Yeah, so I thought I'd give a talk of, this is something I always worry about in my career, in my current job. It's very, very, very difficult keeping up with things. Often it's at times where I don't know what I'm doing. I have a lot to learn. I know nothing. How do I figure out what I need to know in the most efficient way as possible? So just a quick one about myself. So I'm one of the co-leaders of the OWASP Scotland chapter, and I really enjoy networking and sharing information. So I stream, I would say regularly, but lately it's not been happening as much as I would like. Hopefully I'll start that off again. I stream on Twitch and YouTube, and then I'm also quite active on Twitter, a little bit on Mastodon, and then GitHub. I kind of do some stuff, not often. But anyway, enough about that. So just covering off kind of where I've come from and where I currently am, because this I feel is important in terms of understanding the things that I've learned along the way, the different reasons why I've done certain things, and the things, more importantly, that you don't want to do. So, like most people, attended school, yes. I then went to university, got my degree, and after that, this is probably showing my age now, but when I left university, security was quite in its infancy. So for me, I had an interest in security. Security was something that was peaked in university. Did a network security course, which I'll come to in a bit, and that's what really got my interest going. But unfortunately, at the time, it was very niche, where I was, especially because I come from South Africa, it was very niche there. So job opportunities in security were few and far between. It was primarily consultancy based. So I went into development. It's the first thing that you could get when you're out of university, you're trying to get your first job, all that good stuff. So I did that for a few years, around about 8 years, and then luckily I caught a break. Oops. Hopefully it'll stay this time. So I caught a break and joined a company called SecureWorks, where I was development, but then I always had the vision of moving into security, and thankfully that planned out that way. From then I learned quite a bit, especially around the topics later on in this talk. So that's what I'll focus on most. But when we got a university degree, I can still remember it like yesterday. All of us, we had a Bachelor of Science degree, and this was us. We know everything. We are the business. Yeah, no. We quickly found out. So we did a Bachelor of Science. This was in our honors year, so postgraduate year. And probably the first week, we realized how little we actually knew, and very quickly. But to me, it was one of the most important kind of lessons that we learned. It's kind of put us in our place. Don't be arrogant. Don't be overconfident. And also realize where your shortcomings are. But it also set us up for things like things that we had to realize that we didn't know. But come to that in the next slide. As I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. As I mentioned, we did a course in network security. Now, our degree was in Bachelor of Science, Computer Science, so primarily software development. And if I look back to what we learned in there and what we should have known, it's kind of crazy. So SQL injection. Nope, never heard of it. Not touched once. Cross-site scripting? Nope. Authentication? Yeah. Authorization? Yeah. But those are only in our postgrad. Business logic flaws? Nope. Security misconfiguration? Nope. So we're coming out of university not knowing any of these topics. And I don't want to go back to some of the code that I wrote over the years because, yeah. But it's important because we're coming out of university thinking we know all this stuff. Like, we know everything, we can develop software in a production environment, all that great stuff, when in reality we didn't. And this security logging. So that was an important lesson, only after the fact. The other thing that I want to say is, for me, honors was the most beneficial year, my entire career, university learning. What I learned in that 1 year set me up for the rest of my career. Bachelor of Science, been 3 years, great. As I said, we all rocked up, thought we knew what we're doing. First week, here's your first project, off you go and do it. Okay, what do we do? Google. And if you ask me, what is the single most tool or the single most important tool that you ever use in your job? Google, Start Page, Brave, whatever search engine. If you're not using this on a daily basis, then, yeah, I use this on a pretty much daily basis for just about everything I do. So that's probably one of the most useful tools in your arsenal. Then, this is a challenge. So I come from software development. My primary focus is in application security. And one of the biggest challenges I face today is technologies. Not because I don't like them. I love technology. Technology is awesome. But it's so hard to keep up. And by this, I mean, if you take a look back through the years and see the kind of technologies that companies stuck with, this is just a very rudimentary list there that you might face in a typical organization back in the day when dinosaurs roamed the earth. Yeah, you can see it's not that much to get a hold of. Whereas now, you've got all of these, and it's not unforeseen for a single organization to probably be leveraging most, if not all of these. So it's really difficult to keep up. And new technologies are coming out all the time. Some of these technologies are evolving as well. And it's really, really, really difficult. So for my job, I have to kind of be, I want to say, an expert in all of these, but I'm not, because I have no idea about things like Kubernetes. It's a weakness that I definitely know. I don't have the skill set, so I have to go off and build up that skill set. But then you also have the time and resources issues, so I need to find the time to do it, but I don't. So it's probably one of the biggest challenges in the sector, especially if you're focusing on things like application security or even other parts of security where there's a lot of new technologies being introduced. For teams, they often don't see this. They'll go, oh, there's this new technology, we'll introduce it into our team, which is great. They have the resources to maybe focus on 3 or 4 resources, whereas you see here, you have to focus on, I don't know, 10 or so. So it is a real challenge. So the other thing is, once you've got a degree in that, you might go, okay, well, we'll go do certifications. And apologies, that is hard to read, but the point is it's not reading it. But those are kind of all the certifications. I don't know if it covers everything, but the vast majority of certifications within cybersecurity today. Where do you start? Sure, there's common ones like CHE, which is your Common Ethical Hacker, your OCSP, and those kinds of things. But there's a whole bunch of other ones, so some certifications done by SANS, and so on and so forth. It's even really difficult to figure out where you're going to start in here. So where do you begin? What do you do? Just a thing on certifications as well. Personally, I'm not a big fan of them, but I'll say that they are really useful. There is value in them. if you're going to go down the road of certifications, make sure you're doing it for yourself rather than just because, it's some acronym to put behind your name. Make sure you want to do it. Make sure you want to get it. Personally, I have probably 2 or 3 that I may be interested in for myself. I'm not interested in trying to get it because it adds some acronyms to my name. I think that's really important because these days, so many people may be fixated on just getting a certification that's not going to really help them. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of resources, and as well, they're pretty costly. And that's not to say they're not valuable and there's value to gain out of it. But there are other ways, such as like experience, personal research, that you may even get better value out of, especially in terms of your own career and furthering your kind of image and brand, personal brand. So a lot of things around, well, what do we do? Like, we're at this point where we realize, okay, well, we don't know a lot of stuff. There's a lot of new technologies. How do we stay on top of it? How do we learn new things? And all of that. Well, the first thing is realizing that it's often feels like an uphill battle. It can be quite overwhelming. You have this influx of all these technologies flung on you, as well as demands. So, for example, in my role, you have things, something like Kubernetes, where I'm certainly no expert in that. I want to get to that point, but I'm not at the moment. But my role means that I need to provide guidance and advice for some of the things around Kubernetes, for instance. So it becomes overwhelming where you have this issue, well, I don't know enough technical details around the item to provide really solid advice. So that can be a bit of overwhelming. Plus then you get all the other technologies thrown on top of it. And technologies don't stay static. There's constantly evolving in terms of technologies, as well as threats. Threat actors are out there doing all sorts of new things, new vulnerability types. So it can feel like a lot at a time. So part of that, don't be afraid. So one of the things I think is important, and really, I think there's a lot of support in the community for this, is knowing where your strengths and weaknesses are, but also being not afraid to admit and publicly admit those and saying, look, I don't know this. So in my case, for example, the Kubernetes stuff, I'll be more than happy to say, look, I'm not an expert in this. I'll go off and do a bunch of research, or I'll give the best advice that I have based on my previous experience with other technologies. But it's important to realize where your limits are and be open and honest about it. But also feel comfortable in doing that. I know often at times that people might feel that if they do that, that could have other ramifications, which I'll come to a bit later. But to me, admitting that some of these things are things that you don't know. Things like job interviews, a classic example, where sometimes people will try just make up things as they're going through the job interview, or in some cases, I've heard clattering of a keyboard while asking the question. That's going to come off far more worse than you just being open and honest and saying, look, I don't know this, but I'm more than happy to learn and pick up from it. That says a lot more than just trying to make your way through it. And again, you should be able to do this freely and confidently without any sort of repercussions. So I think that's really important. Personally, from my perspective, if I'm hiring anyone or have anyone on my team, that's something that I think is really important for them to have and something that I value a lot. So, what do you do to gain all this knowledge? Like, how do you go about trying to get all this information and learn new things and that? So, the first one is capture the flag. I remember doing my first one, and it kind of was something I always put off because I always worried that being a person in a professional job, if I didn't find any flags, what would that look like? how would that reflect on me, both on a professional level as well as a personal level? How would I react if I didn't find anything? But as I did more and more of these things, I saw the value. So one of the best things about Capture the Flags is you get outside of your own area or your own scope, and that broadens your kind of awareness and visibility into other areas of cybersecurity. So, as I said, I'm in application security, but I know nothing about forensics, or I know nothing about IR. IR is kind of forensics, but nothing about like reverse engineering and that. All of these things help play into part of your job, regardless of what role you have. It's always good to have that broader knowledge. So things like Capture the Flags really, really, really help with that. And also teaches you new techniques, new tools, and just as important, you form new networking. So you can form friends, professional networking even within the industry. So people with different companies, different roles, who may one day be able to help you out, or you may be able to help them out. So to me, Capture the Flags are a really, really, really good way to expand your knowledge and also understand where kind of some of your weaknesses are. So if you see a flag and you, like PHP, who's a fan of PHP? Sorry. I'm not a fan. But PHP is something that's quite common in Capture the Flags. And as a result, I don't like it for that reason. But it's good to understand where your weaknesses are. So for me, I know that PHP is something that I'm not great at. So either I need to learn more on it, or I just admit it and focus on other areas. If I was going for a role, PHP would probably be something that I'd have to definitely brush up on before I even attempted to go for that role. And the other really nice thing is there's just so much out there. As I mentioned, when I first began my career, there was like nothing in security. Anyone remember a site called Alta Vista? Okay, what? Two people, so yeah. That's kind of how long ago it was. So Alta Vista was kind of a forums type site where most of the security communication and chats and all of that happened. And that was kind of like the resource. So that kind of shows you a while ago what was out there versus now, something like this. CTFs, as far as I know, they weren't a thing back then, but now there are so many. And the other great thing is they cover such a wide variety. So you obviously got the Security one that's running at the moment, but there are a bunch of others. So Pico CTF is another really, really good one that I highly advise. It's also run by a university. And the great thing about that is some of these CTFs can be really, really, really challenging. They go from like 0 to hero, where something like Pico CTF is from beginner friendly all the way up. And I think that's really important to call out if you're going to do Capture the Flag. Remember when I said I was always worried about doing Capture the Flag because I worried how it would reflect on me. Nothing's more frustrating than trying to do a CTF and you find nothing. So making sure that you do a CTF that aligns with your current skill sets, and build it up from there. So that's why something like Pico CTF is really great. Start off at the bottom, work your way up. Things like Hack the Box, they have some relatively easy boxes, but that's kind of more advanced levels. So again, great if you've done a lot of CTFs, but also be aware. So you might want to do things like Pico CTF or even things like B-Sides. They have several CTFs, and then Try Hack Me have some things as well. Just one word of caution on CTFs. They're often not really relevant to real world. So some of the scenarios in there are pretty far-fetched. It's good to understand that there could be a possibility, but probably in the real world business type scenario, they're probably not going to happen. So it's worth understanding that. But again, networking, socializing, numerous Discord servers, that kind of thing, really, really, really good way to learn new things and broaden your horizons. Other thing, online learning. There's loads and loads. The best part about it, most of them are free. So you don't have to spend thousands on going some training course or something like that. A lot of it's freely available. So you got things like Hack the Box Academy. It's awesome. I highly recommend you go check it out. They've got an interesting model. So you have like cubes or something that basically earn their monetary thing. You sign up, you get free ones, and then as you complete courses, you earn more cubes, whatever they call their monetary thing. I forgot what it is. Or you can buy more. So it's an interesting approach. I think it's quite a unique and good approach. So as you complete more things, you earn more, so you can do more. But yeah, go check it out. It's really well done. Other things like Web Security Academy. So they cover most of the common web application vulnerabilities. Also really well done. Or hands-on learning. So I think that's something else important to call out here. Most of these are hands-on learning. It's going to very much depend on you as an individual. But I find hands-on, getting familiar with the tools, actually doing things, is a lot better than actually just sitting through a bunch of PowerPoint slides or something like that. So, yeah, Web Security Academy by Portswigger very much does that. You go down several paths and you can complete them, get certification. I think they do certifications, but yeah. Try Hack Me is another one, kind of equivalent to Hack the Box. They have a whole bunch of free stuff as well. So again, there. And then other resources outside of that, you've got OWASP, bunch of online material. A lot of this is probably more useful for referencing. So if you have something like, I don't know, SQL injection. What does a SQL injection look like? What are the different kind of payloads? Something like OWASP cheat sheets and that kind of thing will be really helpful. And then obviously like the OWASP top 10, being familiar with things like that, really helpful. And then the likes of YouTube and Twitch. So there are some streamers who do a much better the job than me and are way better than I am. If you want to find out who they are, please let me know. I'll send you a list. I can't remember them offhand and I don't want to botch it. But yeah, there are a few out there who do an awesome job. So Twitch especially has many active ones. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a cybersecurity topic yet. There's a request to put out there. It would be a lot easier if it was, but yeah. And then books. So it's kind of going old school. This is very much going to be a personal preference. I can't do ebooks. I've tried it so many times. I prefer the flipping book, old school book, but doesn't matter whether it's ebook or old school book. They are good. They're also really good if you want to reference them. I find myself doing that quite often. If you need to go back, do something, books are a lot easier to reference than some, for instance, PowerPoint slide or something like that. And then kind of the last one that you can get in terms of training material type related is blogs, personal blogs. I think these are really, really useful because they give a personal account of a topic. They give a personal insight. So some things that someone may cover off is some of the difficulties, some of the do's, some of the don'ts. And that can save you a lot of time. If you're going to try something, you might go down a rabbit hole. Someone might have already done that, and that can save you a lot of time and frustration, as well as learning new things, as well as being free again. Another good thing to do is read up on security findings. So people who've done research. How did they find it? What did they learn? What approach did they take? Because a lot of that stuff you can use for yourself. This one, I think, is also really important. I've personally seen the value out of this. So Twitter, especially the last few weeks, there's been a lot of controversy around it. But putting that aside, I was in my role for numerous years. kind of hit a stagnant point where I was like, well, what's going on? I'm not really gaining anything out of it. I joined Twitter. Things changed significantly from there. So again, I think it's a tool, right? It depends how you use that tool. If you're using it to spread hate and whatever, you're not going to gain out of it. But if you're engaging with people, communicating with people, sharing ideas, gaining ideas, all that kind of thing, it is a really, really, really useful tool. It's also a really useful tool to stay up to date, see what's trending, seeing what new things are, so new technologies, new threats, new vulnerabilities. I found out about the likes of Log4j through Twitter before I even saw it in the news. So that's a really, really good tool, as well as the networking side. I mean, this group down here, pretty much all through Twitter, right? I got numerous jobs through Twitter. So as you can see, it's a really useful tool, as long as you use it in the right way. And the same would go for Mastodon. And then other ways that you can do networking, as you're all here today, is through events like this. So thankfully, we're back into in-human flesh, real flesh conferences, which is awesome. It's a lot easier to network with real in-person conferences rather than online, because online is normally just listening and then you go away. So it's great to see them back in action. And then finally, there are local chapters. So OWASP have local chapters, DEF CON have local chapters. So this is, again, a really good way to meet. Sometimes those are maybe even better in some aspects because it's a lot smaller, so it's easier to meet different people. Yeah. So the other thing I think I should touch on, if you're going to go into a career, there's two types of skills that you essentially need. And I learned this very early on in my career. My boss sat down with me one day and said, Sean, your technical skills are great. Your soft skills, yeah, you need to work on those. And that stuck with me ever since. Like, this is really important. So, most of us are fixated on tech, love tech, all of that. I certainly am on myself. So it's easy to forget the soft skills that you need. And by soft skills, I mean things like interaction with other people, your communication, to even how you treat people, how you help other people and all that. That's really, really, really important. So, as I said, when I did my career, I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I was doing the right thing, and it turned out I wasn't. And I learned from that. I'm still learning. I managed people. I did things probably not the best way possible. Again, learning from that. So it's important to make sure that build up your technical skills, but also make sure that you build up your soft skills. And again, there's probably a lot of online resources from YouTube to blog posts and all that on this. And then another thing to do is give back. So this is something that I'm really passionate about, helping others. In a way, it kind of feels a bit selfish when I say you gain out of it. But that's not the reason why I do it. I think it's, as long as you're doing it for the right reasons, it's fine to say I gain out of it. I gain great satisfaction seeing people move up in their careers because of stuff that I've done to help them get there. I helped someone in the US get their first proper cybersecurity job on the first interview. To me, that was like, wow, that really made my day. I helped someone gain entry into cybersecurity, the community of cybersecurity career, and yeah, now they're working at AWS. So again, those kinds of things make it all worthwhile. And also seeing things like blog posts and that, helping others and seeing where they go. At the same time, so you're helping them, they're gaining from you, but you also gain out of that. So you learn different things along the way. And this is probably more towards the previous slide of softer skills. You learn how to talk to people, develop empathy, all that kind of stuff, which is really helpful for your career going forward. So yeah, coming towards the end, I think this about sums it up. It's always difficult. So you need to be confident in your career. Like, the way I view this is like, think about it if you're going to go buy a car from a dealership. If you got the salesperson being all timid and, I don't know, I guess, you're probably not going to buy that car. You need someone being confident, but at the same time, you don't want someone being arrogant. So there's always that line. And it comes back to that slide where you need to not be afraid and know where your limits are. Be confident about it, but be confident about the things that you do know, but also be modest about it. Another really important, so this one to me is kind of rounding it up, but I think it's really important, is looking after yourself. So a lot of this is really overwhelming. You sometimes bring yourself down. So as I mentioned right at the beginning, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. You've got all this deluge. I'm not up for the job. Why am I here? What am I doing here? And that's like largely imposter syndrome and self-doubt. You're in the role, you got hired for the role for a reason. So view it that way. Take that big massive mountain that you're looking to climb. Take it, break it down into chunks. There's quite several diagrams online that show you like a staircase going up, and they show a massive step with someone trying to pull themselves up to the top, and they show the little steps and someone walking up. Kind of that mentality where breaking it down into smaller pieces will get you there. So, and that will also then build up your confidence, help with things like imposter syndrome. And it's also important that you surround yourself with like the networking, your friends, all that in the industry that you made. Maybe not just in the industry, but also outside, but it helps having those in the industry. Because then they can relate, they can provide you guidance, advice, point you in the right direction. The other thing is burnout. I wish I would listen to my own advice. Thankfully, I haven't had this badly yet, and hopefully it'll keep that way. But I have come close. There are times where I push myself just to that limit. And when you're young, you're like, oh, I know better, I know everything. And as you get older, you're like, yeah, don't. It's really important that you pace yourself. Have time for your own hobbies. So recently, I got back into photography. It's one of the best decisions I've made. My bank manager disagrees with me, but it's really important that you get a hobby. And I know sometimes people say, oh, get away from the computer screen. You have to make sure it's not at a computer, and that. I don't agree with that. What I think is important is you get a hobby that you enjoy doing, that helps you relax, get away from whatever your ordinary day job is. So if it's sitting in front of a computer playing games, or sitting in front of a computer doing research, and it makes you happy, why not? Obviously, have a healthy diet, get out, get some sunshine and that. But the important thing is get something that will just get you away from everything for a bit. This is something that I didn't do and regret it, but I'm tackling it now because it does catch up to you. It may not catch up to you in a year's time or 2 years, but eventually will catch up to you. So the other thing, enjoy the ride. View this as a journey. As I said, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to take in. Do it in small steps. Enjoy it. Many of you, I assume, are leaving university, and you've got a long, bright career ahead of you. I would like to think I'm halfway through my career. So I still have that view that I still got a lot to learn. I'm learning on a daily basis. There's a lot of cool technologies coming out. It's crazy the amount of technology coming out and what it can do. It's exciting. So enjoying that learning, and enjoying it and taking it all and embracing it. To that, don't ever stop learning. It's constantly. The day that you stop learning is probably the day that you should call it quits or get into management. which don't. Yeah. Have you not seen the title of my talk? No, I'm joking, of course. Like, management's, it's different, right? And there's still a lot to learn there. Some management's a blend of both. But the important thing is, within this field, you'll constantly be learning. And if you're not, then, yeah, that's, and then, yeah, this is me every day of my job. Trying to figure out what am I doing. It's all part of the fun, right? So, any questions? No? Cool. Still have no idea.